Welcome back to the Strange Truth podcast with Joe, Brian, and Sam is our guest tonight.
Hello, everyone. Aliens.
And we have our Men in Black back in the studio again. Man in Black, rather. Singular this time. And tonight we're going to first talk a little bit about Bob Lazar, since last episode I really didn't have too much of an idea who he was, and I've had time to research him a little bit. And I know Brian's come to a little bit different conclusion than I have about him. He's very convinced he's a hoaxer, which I consider Bob Lazar probably one of the more credible people I've seen talk about UFOs lately. So
I will say I'm 100% convinced,
okay,
but I think it's more likely. I'll put it that way.
All right. Well, get into some of these reasons why you think he's a hoax.
Well, I was thinking you might want to go over the story first.
Well, okay.
Because the listeners might not know.
Yeah, so Bob Lazar is the one who disclosed the existence of Area 51 to the public. He did so on I believe a radio broadcast or television broadcast on the local news to the Nevada area. And he did it because he believed at the time that he was fearing for his life, that because of the sensitive nature of the projects he was working for at Area 51, essentially he believed that he was going to be murdered or disappeared or something of that nature. And it turned out it was a misunderstanding or something of that nature, because they were surveilling him more frequently because his wife had been having an affair and he didn't know about it, but the security clearance people that were watching him did. And so they thought he might be compromised by this affair she was having with someone or another. But apparently it was a mistake on his part to even disclose all of this stuff. But once he did, it created a bunch of problems for him. According to him, he no longer has a social security number, which and there's no records of his going to certain universities and things like that. His academic record has somehow vanished. But yet there are people that remember him working at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and places like that. So he claimed to work in S4, which is a secretive area of Area 51, where he apparently was part of an isolated research team that would work on different parts, components of the UFO craft that they had. What I find incredible about him, other than the fact that he's been saying the same story for 30 years and really hasn't changed much of that story, is the fact that he talks about, like, his first initial reactions to seeing a UFOs. He just thought it was a government craft. Oh, that's why everybody's seeing UFOs, is because we're just making them. It's just our new top secret project or whatever. And some of his other comments are very much like what his initial response would be, which is not to jump to the conclusion that there are extraterrestrials or anything of that nature. It was only the nature of the technology he was working with, this so-called anti-gravity drive. And after actually getting inside one of the UFOs to examine where the piece that he was working on would fit in the craft, that he become more convinced that this was not earthly technology that he was operating on.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to hear your reasons why you're skeptical about it.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of inconsistencies in his story, as well as the problems with his education not lining up. Of course, you can always make the argument with that the government somehow went and erased his educational record. But there's still some things I'll touch on with that. But, for instance, one part of his story is that he was hired to replace another scientist
who had died working on
in an explosion. Apparently, he was trying to cut into like one of the anti-gravity units or reactors or whatever.
That's correct. Yeah.
And
according to his
it blew up. And let me find my place here. In UFOs and Alien Presence, Lazar said in a September 1990 interview that the blast had blown the blast doors off into the monitoring area, and he thought the blast size was in the 20 kiloton range. He also said that the accident was in April 1987, and it was passed off as an unannounced nuclear test.
Okay.
And some of the problems with that are that there are some nuclear tests that were announced in that year, but none of them really match up to what he's saying.
None of them match up with his date.
Right.
Okay.
Now he could have the date wrong, but it's little things like that. There's a lot of little things. And there's also, they released all the unannounced nuclear tests since then that they did. And, those would have a big presence in the newspapers and stuff, too, if something like that had happened. And there's no evidence of any unannounced nuclear tests during that time. But, okay, here's another part that is unlikely. He actually claims that he was the one who discovered that the fuel was element 115.
Yeah, for the said that they ran on element 115 that had been stabilized, and it was something that hadn't even been discovered in a laboratory until recently. What was that, 2008 or something?
And that one isn't stable.
Right. It's only.
And you can make the argument that it's a different isotope type or whatever, or different number of isotopes.
Arguably, if we can't stabilize it, and he's saying that there is a stable version of it, that just might mean that our technology level isn't caught up to that.
Yeah, that's definitely possible.
But
this is the part that seems very unlikely, that he was the one himself that identified. Like, here's a quote: "I was the one who identified 115. That was the only contribution to the project. And I don't stand on the fact that it's 115, but if it's not, it's 114. It's right there." But the thing is that according to Lazar's own statements, he only worked at S4 for a week. And that just seems really unlikely, that considering, all the security briefings and getting, who else goes to a job in a week and, discovers this, what this is that those scientists have been, he claims also that they've been working on for a long time trying to figure out what it was. And he's the one that figured it out. That just seems really unlikely.
I will give it that, but the way his interviews sounded that I've listened to, he definitely doesn't sound like he worked there for a week. He's talking about them picking him up in the middle of the night and transporting him out there. It sounded more like sometimes a week would go by before he would even go out to the site, based on the way he was talking. But I don't know. That may be a time discrepancy.
Yeah,
he certainly makes a lot more.
I'm going by this site, and I have to verify it with other sites. It just says,
because it seems like he worked there for a few months, based on this.
It says, first off, he's on the job. Or maybe this is just saying that he found it during the first week.
Oh, okay. That was the discovery he made during the first week?
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like quite a conclusion to jump to on your first day.
Yeah, I think I misread that. It just says that he discovered it the first week, and it says, if true, that would seem Lazar had one of the better first weeks in the history of mankind.
Yeah, it's quite a scientific breakthrough. First
Yeah.
day on the job. Poking around with alien technology. But.
And, okay, let me get to some of the education problems. Of course, there's the problems of, he says he was at MIT and these other things, and it just doesn't really work out. There's no evidence that he ever went to these colleges. But there's also evidence that, and let me find this. Basically, there's evidence that he was other places other than where he claims to have been. I'll just read this whole section. Lazar is claimed to have attended Pierce College, a 2-year community college, in 1976. His attendance at this college, although not the precise time period, has been verified by Stan and Friedman. Lazar's attendance at Pierce is quite likely, given that he would likely have lived fairly close to the point in time. Also, in the general period, Lazar claimed to have attended California State, Northridge, just a short time for some classes. This is possible and wouldn't conflict with his general whereabouts. The next time we can pin down Lazar's whereabouts was on July 27, 1980, when he married his first wife, Carol. According to the marriage certificate, he was living in Canoga Park, and he listed his occupation as electronics engineer. Curiously, he also listed his highest grade of schooling, completed as 12. His location is consistent with statements he has made about working for Fairchild Industries, which was located in the San Fernando Valley. Moving into the future, Lazar again surfaces 2 years later in the famous Los Alamos Monitor jet car story on June 27, 1982. The paper said that Lazarus had moved to Los Alamos about a month ago from California. From other statements in this article, it's apparent that Lazarus had been in California for some time and that he had just started work at LA&L. Yet this is the year that Lazar claimed on at least 2 occasions to have received a master's degree from MIT. However, there's no evidence whatsoever that Lazar was anywhere other than California or Los Alamos during this time. Indeed, there's no evidence in any of the numerous public records concerning Lazar that he's ever been in or around Cambridge, Massachusetts. When Lazar filed for bankruptcy in July of 1986, the information he was required to provide gives a snapshot of his whereabouts and activities in the years immediately prior to his filing. Is there anything in this massive data that could even remotely allow for Lazar to spend a year at Caltech, obtaining his master's degree as he claimed? Well, in it he states that the only places he lived in the previous 6 years were 2 addresses in Los Alamos. Note that this is already incorrect since he didn't arrive in Los Alamos until mid-1982. He also states that his occupation for the previous 6 years was a photo processor at his residence. Oddly, Los Alamos employment was not mentioned. He also shows that he was very active in the Los Alamos area in 1995, borrowing heavily, apparently, in part to support his photo processing business. For example, the records show that in March 1985 he borrowed $12,000 to upgrade his business film printers. Other purchases in 1985 included a Corvette for $19,000, a number of personal loans, and finally a house in Las Vegas in June of 1985. If we were to believe the Omni magazine, and I'll leave that to the reader's discretion, in 1985 Lazar was on vacation in Nevada and bought into a legal brothel near Reno. Again, the records clearly show that in 1985 and a few prior years, Lazar was either at Los Alamos or occasionally Las Vegas. There is not the slightest hint that he may have been working away at a master's degree in Pasadena at Caltech. And I could go on and on. There's other
It
little
sounds like there's lots of
inconsistencies.
discrepancies with his
Yeah.
work record and where he was living at.
Right. And it's not just that they can't find the records, it's like that there's other records, like of his own writing.
Yeah.
You know, for like a bankruptcy thing.
Right.
That state, he was not where he says he was.
Have you ever heard anything about him not having a social security number, as he claims? I'm wondering if that's
I
something
didn't come
anyone's
across
been able
that,
to
but,
dispute or not. Because it seems like someone could easily check the records to find
I know
out if this guy exists
Well, it
and
seems
a
like if he's
government
filing
citizen.
Filing for bankruptcy, I've never
Right.
been through the process. But
Right.
It seems like you need to
Yeah.
provide
And there's other court cases that he's had since the whole
Right.
thing has come out, where you would think you would need that.
Yeah, that seems like it, but I don't know.
But I didn't come across that specifically.
Now, I guess another part of the question that I have about that is, if he is a hoaxer, why create a hoax at that time? He has made it a point a few times that any money he gets from any of this stuff, he donates to science, like.
Yeah, but has anybody ever checked that? I mean, he's made a lot of money even from the. There was those little model kits.
Yeah.
I think Testers models or whatever it's called. They made a version of the sports model.
Oh, okay.
Which was his,
design.
that he supposedly worked on, and that made him some money. And I'm sure that there's tons of ways. I mean, he wrote books and stuff. I mean, I think to say that he's not making much money off of this, you have to take his word. And if that's already suspect, then I think there's evidence that he's made some money from it.
Well, no, I know there is a new documentary out with him that I haven't watched yet, but it's the documentary maker attempts to dispute some of the stuff that you're talking about here on why people believe he's a hoaxer. And so he does find eyewitness correspondence for some of these cases where he's.
I think there's only one, though, isn't there? And there's just one guy that says, "Oh yeah, I remember him."
I don't know. I haven't watched it.
Yeah, I watched part of it, but the narration is so bad. Do you remember who narrates it? It's
what's his name?
The guy who played in the Iron Man movie with the whips.
Oh, Mickey Rourke?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Mickey Rourke's the narrator?
Yeah, that's like the opposite of Morgan Freeman.
That's a little strange.
And the whole
Like
thing is just like... It's actually hilarious to watch it. If you don't have
now I want to
on,
watch it just for...
Yeah, if you don't have captions on, you'll have no idea what he's saying.
Perfect.
Oh, I have a question. This is
Yeah.
Sam, science fiction writer, special guest. What evidence is there that he actually worked at Area 51?
Well, I guess the main thing would be that no one knew about it until he disclosed it.
Okay.
So it was a classified site as far as I could tell.
I'll kind of contradict that by saying a lot of people knew about it. It wasn't officially recognized. But people talked about Area 51 even before Bob Lazar.
Well, I know there were locals that knew something was going on.
I mean, it was known in the UFO community. It was like,
really?
Area 51, that's a secret site. Now, the government didn't come out and say that it was until after all this, to say that it was an official base.
So it forced the government to recognize it publicly.
You could probably say that, yeah.
Okay. So if he was a hoaxer, then his point was probably to just get them to recognize this site actually exists? But how did he know that?
Just for infamy, or to become famous. I mean, people do crazy things. And he's a very unique person. He's very eccentric. I think you can easily say that about him. I mean, in my mind, it seems very plausible that he would do this just to become famous.
Maybe, but he does seem very adamant on the interviews I've watched him where he's like, don't come and visit me. Whatever you do, don't come to my house. He really just wants to be left alone from interviews I've seen with him.
Yeah.
And he says that consistently.
At the same time, when he's at the bar, he might be, I'm the guy that worked at Area 51. They were chicken meats.
Well, I mean, that's a great way to get free drinks. I'd be all about that.
I would buy his drinks.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, he's giving one impression, but that doesn't mean that, behind closed doors, he's a different person.
I don't know. I just didn't really get that vibe from him when I watched the interviews. He did seem very sincere to me, and I've seen a lot of practice liars, usually the ones in the government themselves. So
I agree that he seems very sincere. I just don't know if I buy it.
Fair enough. There's a lot of inconsistencies in his story, but I guess for me it's and of course the listener is free to decide for themselves. But for me, it seems like some of these things are potential to be faked in his background. If you have an intelligence agency that can alter people's records,
I think it's possible, but that's such a huge ordeal.
It would be a big ordeal.
I would think, even to the level of going and like his, going back and change. They'd have to go back and change his.
Living records and things like that.
And bankruptcy thing and like basically everything.
Now, what about the possibility that he's actually a government agent that's sowing disinformation? Sowing disinformation to make this seem like an alien research facility.
That's totally possible.
Weapons.
Right, they're all actually at Area 52.
Yeah.
Like we'll have to cover the Paul Benowitz. I think we talked about him before. He's the one that basically, I mean, this is a story of the government basically feeding this guy disinfo. And basically drove him crazy. Because he was basically spying on American base and picking up all this weird stuff because he was an electronic engineer and like
Yeah.
pretty much. He actually worked for the government from time to time. He was, kind of this genius inventor, and he was picking up all their secret signals and seeing weird things in the sky, and he came to the government with it.
Right, he went to the Air Force.
Yeah,
I listened to part of that.
Yeah, I think there's aliens. I think there's aliens, around your base, and they realized that he was looking at some really secret stuff that he shouldn't be looking at that had nothing to do with aliens. So they decided, let's just keep telling them it's aliens, and they gave him like a bunch of horse shit, basically.
Yeah,
and he ended up just going crazy. I think he killed himself eventually, if I'm not mistaken. I forget how the story ended, but it didn't end well.
Well, and I'm sure that that's part of their tactic for some certain classified projects.
Right, and the guy who was the
whatever
BS
BS we
guy,
can,
has already come out. He's on the record. Well, somebody exposed him, and he basically come out and was like, "Yeah, I did do this. It was my job to feed him this information."
So I mean, what are the consequences if A, he's telling the truth, B, he's a disinformation agent, or C, he's just a crazy person? Like, what are the different consequences or scenarios that play out?
Well, if he's telling the truth, then obviously it kind of blows the lid off of the UFO alien secrecy. It would prove that,
it
we've
essentially
captured
exposed
crafts
they're out
and
there.
we're working on it.
Right.
I mean, if he's just crazy and looking for a quick buck or just some minor fame, then that's all it is, I guess. Now, if it's disinformation, then that gets into that you could really speculate on.
Yeah, it seems like 2 out of the 3 scenarios has the government intervening in some individual's life in some significant fashion, which is really interesting, I think.
Or maybe, here's another idea. Maybe he was at risk of exposing something completely different, and the government came to him and was like, look, you're either going to go to prison or just make up all this UFO bullshit. Maybe they made some kind of deal with that. I mean, that's a possibility too.
I think there's also a possibility that he's a hoaxer. He lied about going to MIT. He lied about being an electrical engineer. And he lied so well that he fooled the government. And they brought him in as some kind of consultant. Because there's tons of situations like Iran-Contra, like with contractors in Iraq and Afghanistan, where the government are just so strapped for time and cash that anyone who can give a good speech can convince and talk their way up to the highest levels. So, and then the government, that would also explain why he only worked there for a short period of time, because they finally did the background check and realized, oh no, these were fake papers, he didn't really go to MIT. Damn, we shouldn't have showed this guy the aliens, and then kicked him out. And then the fact that he's a hoaxer means no one's going to believe him, even if he actually has some insider info.
So he padded his resume.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, he could have padded his resume, because he said the main reason he was hired at that site anyway is he went and encountered, I believe it was someone that worked on a NASA program at like a speech that they were giving, and he happened to show up in at the time he was driving around in a rocket car that he built. So he was a knows enough about propulsion systems to at least scratch built a rocket car.
He was a very smart guy, or he is a very smart guy, whether or not he was formally educated or not.
Yeah, so he may have just submitted a resume to that guy that was padded up to make him more hireable. It's quite possible. I don't know.
There were some other things. I won't go into them because it would take too long, but
sure.
I had a whole thing on a physicist kind of reviewing what he said and talking about a lot of his concepts of gravity, like being able to warp time and space in order to get there. That would also kind of warp everything and draw everything to it. It's just not very plausible. Now, there's certain ideas like wormholes and stuff that do make sense. But, and if I'm not making sense, I could read exactly what he said, but...
No, I think I know generally what you're meaning. although I guess there's to an extent there's already gravitational fields that come from other stellar bodies, the Earth included.
Right, right.
So if you're somehow counteracting that field, I doubt you would be a dense enough object to draw anything to you, but you could reduce your mass. This is all theoretical
I think
science.
in that case he was specifically
So-
talking about traveling, like faster than the speed of light type of thing. Like getting here from there.
Maybe. I don't know. He in the interview I listened to, he
also talked
dismissed
about that too.
he
Yeah.
dismissed the idea of it being faster than light travel.
Oh, really?
When I listened
Okay,
to
well,
it.
I'd have to...
He said it was super speed compared to what we can achieve with Earth technology, but he didn't consider it faster than light. But, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's said something differently.
Yeah, well, you don't
And
need,
he may have
I'll
in
bring
past
this up.
interviews or something.
if you're going 90% the speed of light, you can travel almost anywhere in the universe in what will feel like 10 years your time.
Right.
And it'll just be 1,000 years to the rest of the universe because of dilation. But maybe these aliens don't care about getting aged into the far future and losing all their friends because they signed up for this shit.
One of the more interesting things I had heard from him was he was talking about them experimenting with this drive. And, you know, again, this could be a made-up story. But he was talking about when they were using the so-called gravity projectors of the UFO, that one thing they did was put a candle there, and the candle light from the flame would actually seem to bend, which, you know, if you have a strong enough gravity, I mean, you can even bend light. It's claimed that happens with wormhole or
black holes,
Black
because
holes
the escape
are dense
velocity
enough.
is higher than the speed of light.
Right.
yeah, and I think what this other guy was saying... If I can
But
find
that
it,
would be
yeah.
like an incredible amount of gravity. to
Yeah,
be-
at least to me that lends
Right,
credence
exactly,
to the
yeah,
it would
yeah.
suck up everything else theory.
But it does fit with the theory of relativity. and
Right.
Einstein stuff. But I don't know. That's pretty wild.
Trying to bring up this site.
Like, you have to know a lot about science to even fake his stories, though.
Oh, yeah,
That's what
yeah.
I'm-
That's what I'm
like-
saying. He's a very smart guy. That's why he sounds so convincing.
I guess for me, it's just like if he was a hoaxer, he would have been better off writing science fiction novels and starting his own cult like L. Ron Hubbard with the amount of science he needed to know to create these kind of stories is what kind of, I guess, I find so incredulous about it, like him being a fake. But I think there is definitely a lot of weirdness surrounding his histories, personal history,
Yeah.
which he
And,
claims is
to
just
play
government.
devil's advocate,
Yeah.
maybe... and this site isn't coming up for some reason. It's trying to load. But to play devil's advocate, maybe the government gets engineers and scientists with shady backgrounds
And just messes with their
just
head.
so they can be easily discredited if they ever do come out.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
it's like some Sun Tzu level stuff of
Right.
conniving, intelligence agency shit there. But I wouldn't put it past him, because if you do have some top secret project that has a lot of big implications, what do you want people that you can discredit easily?
Right, people
when
you can
they leave the
dispose of
program.
easily without having to many questions.
Right.
Somebody that already looks, not very credible, but who is genuinely smart.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess that's enough talking about Bob Lazar.
Okay.
Let's talk about Skinwalker Ranch, because that's real weird.
Okay.
Are either of you familiar with Skinwalker Ranch? Well,
A little, I know I've heard of it.
it's so
It's called like the
you're more familiar with it than I am, Brian. But like, what I found curious is at one point a billionaire purchased the property, and then
the same billionaire who is associated with the new TTSA, the To the Stars Academy, I believe, or he has some association with it, I believe.
Yeah, he was already
Robert Bigelow. Is that
he
right?
was already part. Yeah, Robert Bigelow. He was already part of a program that he was trying to essentially legitimize UFO research
aren't
before
they-
he purchased the place.
Yeah, I think they're the ones who got the UFO videos from the Navy back
Yeah,
in
yeah.
2018. Okay.
Mhm, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that led me to be a little more open-minded to it,
Uh-huh.
to the possibility, because that was some pretty good evidence.
Yeah, there's still all of the non-alien explanations.
Because up until then, I become more and more skeptical the older I've gotten, and that kind of made me think, well, maybe I should look into this again. And that's kind of how the podcast got started.
Oh yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, that was totally a watershed moment for me. I'd always wanted to believe, but it's been too much of an empiricist, and then you see those things flying circles around F-18s. The fact that they're like 2 different videos, 10 years apart, underwater, and any alternative explanation is much more convoluted. It involves like multiple instrument failures and weather phenomena. So like the aliens actually win Occam's razor.
Yeah.
One, I think.
And the only other explanation is that the government has this technology and was just playing around with it, seeing how the rest of the Navy would react to it, which doesn't really seem like a good idea.
Yeah, and my problem also, it's like Dr. Strangelove, why build a doomsday machine and tell no one about it?
Right,
If
yeah.
our government had craft like that, we'd be flying them over the Strait of Hormuz and over the South China Sea and over Crimea and letting our enemies know not to mess with us.
Especially if we had it back then. What was the date that this stuff happened?
Well, Robert Bigelow purchased the property in 1996.
Well, I meant the video, or the videos when they were filmed. Yeah.
The Nimitz stuff happened in 2016, I believe it was.
Okay.
Or 2017. It was very recent.
Well, it came out, but
2017 was the New York Times.
I think it was from 2004.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, something like that.
They confirmed the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program in
That's
2017.
quite a long time to have a secret, technology of that caliber.
Yeah.
Like if it was our stealth bombers, I mean, what is it usually? I mean, how long did we have that before we
They
told
say
the public?
20 years is usually the rule.
Yeah, it seems to be about right, yeah.
So I know like the F-117, we started working on flying wings and stealth technology in
Probably
the like
in the
late 60s, early 70s, and then we started, actually using the F-117 for combat in Gulf War I in 91.
So by that timetable, I guess it's still plausible that it could be secret.
Right. Check back in 2024.
Right. But it still seems unlikely to me that they would test it on their own people, knowing that bad things could happen. People could,
Right.
I mean, that was a tense situation, and they weren't carrying weapons on them, but they could still crash, or lots of bad things could happen when the people involved don't know everything that's going on.
Yeah. Right, and those things could set off missile defense systems that get set off by flocks of seagulls sometimes. So you'd think we'd be cautious about that.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, back to Skinwalker.
Skinwalker.
Well, this is all tied into Skinwalker because, in fact, that particular agency is tied into all of this stuff. So Robert Bigelow purchased the property in 1996 and moved his NIDS team, is what he called it. This is the National Institute for Discovery of Science, but basically they were out there to advance study of various fringe science, paranormal topics, and most notably ufology. So they had already heard about sightings that were happening on the ranch and purchased it to study specifically for that purpose. Now, what had happened is he replaced his organization in 2004 with the Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, and apparently they had more of a clandestine mission statement and even a possible government sponsor. So seems like his research may have been somehow more legitimatized to like certain corporate interests or government interests at that time. And I mean, there's a series of very bizarre sightings that have supposedly happened on Skinwalker Ranch. I'll get into more of that in a minute, but the main thing is that 2007, supposedly an unnamed DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency agent, contacted Bigelow and actually visited the property. And Bigelow says that the agent had a personalized close encounter on the ranch, and it was about this time that Senator Harry Reid appropriated $22 million for the study of Skinwalker Ranch. And then shortly after that is when this Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program sort of became more utilized, or came out of whatever black budget became an actual thing. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that that's all tied into this ranch. It's sort of almost maybe if there was a program like Project Blue Book used to be for the Air Force, maybe the Navy had something like that was just kind of sitting around collecting dust, and they punched some more money back into that project once they found something that they couldn't explain on Skinwalker Ranch. So
it's certainly interesting. At first, the fact that a billionaire, bought this ranch and thought, something real was going on here seems like a big deal. At the same time, in recent years, I've come to learn that billionaires aren't always smart.
No, not yeah, clearly not.
So maybe that's not as big of a deal, but
right.
But it is interesting. That does lend a little more credence to it.
Well, in 2016, apparently the ranch was sold from Bigelow to an undisclosed buyer who operates under a corporation called Adamantium Holdings.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's not even at all.
For $4.5 million is what they paid for the ranch.
And supposedly
which he bought
they're
for
continuing
$200,000.
Supposedly they're continuing the research.
Yeah, that's what I'm understanding. But
yeah. Because I saw an interview with a guy, although he wasn't, he was like,
and apparently
out, so you could tell who he was.
Apparently the site has a bunch of history even before, like, basically before whites ever were in America. Was, a lot of Native American lore around the site, specifically where it gets the name Skinwalker Ranch.
Right.
And so there's all sorts of native legends around it, and just seems to be a history of weird stuff, weird encounters and stories that come out of that place. Some of them I don't even really buy because they're just so weird. Like
there's a lot of folklore just all mixed together with it.
Well, because there's this place called Bottom Hollow Lake that's out there, and apparently it's called that because there used to be a saloon nearby, and everybody would just hurl their bottles into the lake or whatever. So it's apparently there's just broken glass and stuff down there. But more recently, 2 people were drowned or died in the lake under strange circumstances, and there was another almost like close call where a woman was killed, and the guy had swam down and saw what appeared to be some kind of black tentacle thing grasping onto her. And there have been other weird sightings of something they call the Cthulhu slug or something. And it's like, that stuff just sounds completely batshit, like nothing I've ever heard of. I mean, I don't know if I believe those stories, but there are certainly a lot of other weird things that seem to happen.
And there's a site, I think it's called skinwalkerranch.org or something. I don't know who owns it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
It has like this whole big list of the entities you might run into.
Right, and there's a % chance.
Yeah, how much of a percentage chance that you'll see this,
Well, I don't doubt that there might be some sort of prehistoric fish that's been surviving in a cavern. There's some crack in the bottom of the the lake where some.
I think it's more of an artificial lake. So it wasn't a lake before; it was just like a crater or something,
Well, most cephalopods can walk on land for short periods, so the Cthulhu slug could crawl over from it.
Yeah. But I mean, there's some chance of
or just
underwater fish swimming up through the crack.
Dropped in through a portal, which is another thing that's supposed to happen at Skinwalker. These portals that go to another.
And supposedly there are
place.
Strange lights that float around, and if you get caught in them, they kind of can bring other entities forward, or I don't know. It sounds to me like, I don't know if that's really a portal, if that sounds closer to just other UFO encounter experiences.
Well, there is actually people that have said they've seen actual portals. And they look through it and it's nighttime and it's like daytime on the other side.
Now that's weird, but
again, there's lots of stories.
I guess
very little evidence other than
if you drink enough moonshine, you can time travel.
Yeah, I know that.
the only real evidence that gives it any legitimacy, I think, is the fact that some important people seem very interested in it.
Yeah, that's what's curious to me.
Yeah.
And still are, especially that evil Adamantium Corporation. It sounds like a company that reverse engineers metal from alien spacecraft. Like in a sci-fi novel, that would be too on the nose.
Right.
Man, what a name! It sounds like something right out of a comic book.
Yeah, Wolverine, Adamantium Skeleton.
Right.
I don't think that's a real metal, though.
No, it's just a word that means really, really hard. It's like in Old English literature, they always talk about adamant when they want to say how tough they are.
Right.
Where is it again? I kind of want to go there.
Oh, it's in Utah.
Utah.
And I actually did go there. Or
Okay.
at least I went along the outskirts of it.
Okay, do you see anything?
No. But it was very spooky.
Sure.
Because I was there with my girlfriend, and she didn't feel good, so she stayed at the motel. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go to Skinwalker Ranch in the middle of the night by myself. And, you know, it's out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
As you do.
And it was very, very spooky, but no, I didn't see anything. And you can't get too close to the ranch itself because there's like guards and stuff, because it's still, you know, controlled by, you know, whoever controls it now.
Yeah, some mysterious
Adamantium.
corporation.
Adamantium Corp, they're cyborgs.
But
sentinels.
I right. Who is it in in Wolverine that made Wolverine, put the metal in him?
Yeah, there's that evil scientist that he always gets revenge on. I forget his name.
Weapon X.
Weapon X, that's
Weapon
it. That's what they
X.
should
Yeah,
have
you're
just
right,
named
yeah.
their company, Weapon X.
Yeah. Making alien weapons.
For everyone.
But
the fact that, this is all tied into that program that was recently, you know, revealed to be still operating by the New York Times. So that seems unusual.
yeah, I would definitely go there again. You know, well, hopefully with someone else.
Yeah.
But I think it would, you know, and you can only, I think, kind of see the outskirts of it. I followed a map actually from that kind of crazy website. So it seemed, you know, it was like a lookout that you could kind of see the area. Not that I could make anything out really, because it was in the middle of nowhere and it was pitch dark.
What I think's interesting about some of these encounters, because they're talking about like an invisible helicopter, is one that nothing is seen even in daylight, but you hear a helicopter coming. I mean, that can be probably explained away. I mean, it could just be over a hill and you don't see it.
Yeah.
But another thing they described as like a mini stealth craft, which actually, you know, based on what it's talking about, we do have a stealth drone that was recently revealed.
Oh, sure, yeah.
From some of our operations in Syria. I guess it got shot down. So
why it would be flying around Skinwalker?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm wondering. Is it near like an Air Force base or anything like that? You know?
I don't know. I didn't notice any, but I think there are a lot of bases in Utah.
Yeah, I mean,
in that whole area, because there's a lot of desert and stuff. So a lot of places where that
good place to test your stealth drones, I suppose.
And it's also where all our nuclear missiles are, so it's probably a good place to patrol with some stealth drones too.
But some of these other encounters, like what they call the Traveler, which is supposed to be a Native American guy that seems kind of out of time, that arrives and apparently he speaks in a different language and he's kind of ghost-like. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then there's something called the Dark One, which is I don't know. I'll just
this
read
is all from
this
that
to
site.
you. Yeah. So it's been witnessed by people as an enigmatic figure that seems out of place with the bizarre alien nature of the phenomenon. It's described as a male being alone. He appears to be a primitive Native American, possibly Fremont or Pueblo tribe, or possibly Aztec. I don't know why they even throw that in there. He does not speak, appears to be residing outside of our known timeline, appears surprised. Imagine so. No, but there's some of these sound like ghost stories. There's like a little girl, disembodied voice of a little girl, the so-called water babies that are supposed to be under the lake. A lot of them seem to be similar to UFO phenomenon, firefly type things that people see, glow birds, and something called the orange football that glows in the air. Yeah, there's some weird stuff as well, like what's called the sentient mist. So apparently something that seems to be like a supernatural thick smoke that comes out of nowhere and seems electrified. And they think that this is some sort of portal that allows these other entities through. I don't know. This stuff is just weird.
With very little proof. Even the investigators, what were their
NIDS.
NIDS?
Yeah.
They weren't able to really get any concrete proof either. At least they've never made any public. They've said that weird things happened, but they always happened off camera.
Well, yeah.
Like, yeah. Right.
The aliens all have radar and camera detectors.
I don't think that's too implausible, actually.
Yeah,
if the technology is that
that was a
is
joke
that good.
when I started, but actually, yeah.
I mean, if you take that, then probably the only times we do see them is when that technology screws up. There's the only time
their
anybody
cameras
gets a picture
off, quick,
of them.
fly
Yeah.
by.
I also think there's a distinct possibility that alien beings are psychological phenomenon that occur in groups of people and in individuals. I mean, I know I've talked with people who have had sleep paralysis that encounter shadowy figures looking at them and such. But I think it's entirely possible that certain environments as well provoke more of these individual hallucinations. I think it's entirely possible that Skinwalker Ranch has some sort of strong magnetic field that induces auditory and sensory hallucinations of some kind.
Right.
Just what a disinfo agent would say.
I'm not saying I'm a disinformation agent.
I'm not saying you're not a disinformation either.
Well, yes and no.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's also, I've heard that speculated with haunted places, or so-called haunted places, that it's some sort of geomagnetic anomaly or something,
or even just
that triggers hallucinations.
Yeah, just some maybe a particular geographic formation, stimulates some sort of psychic response in people.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some weird magnetic stuff. You guys familiar with the so-called Portland? What do they call it? The Portland Portal or whatever it is. There's a house that you can go into, and
I think a lot of that though is just debunked as.
Well, no, it's some kind of magnetic field, and.
I've heard it's more just
the way the house is built.
Yeah, and it's just everything is kind of an optical illusion.
It's a little off. I know with ball lightning, they were able to show that strong electromagnetic fields like you would experience during a thunderstorm can reliably make people see glowing balls. So there's some credence for that, especially like most of these places out in the desert have really harsh storms all the time in like the early spring. And even when it isn't, it's like really stormy. So it'd be interesting to see if there's like a time of the year where more of these sightings happen.
Yeah, if you could map that with meteorological data.
Is kind of a fascinating subject in itself. Yeah, my grandfather got to see some ball lightning one time.
That's awesome.
He said it just came out of the sky and then kind of almost bounced along the telephone wire, and then kind of came down right where he was. He said it's like, I think, beach ball size.
Wow.
And then it just disappeared. I don't know if it like exploded or faded away or what. I forget how he said it disappeared, but
that's pretty wild. Well, what else do we want to talk about?
Do we want to interview?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us something about yourself, Sam?
Hey there, my name's Sam. I'm a science fiction writer and scholar. So originally, I got a degree in biophysics because I thought science was cool from reading science fiction, and I kind of realized I hated math, I hated computers, and I hated getting my hands dirty. So like I wasn't really in the right place. So then I just went back to what inspired me. I got my MFA in creative writing. I have a couple of novels I've finished and I'm working on publishing. Most recently, one about space pirates trying to rob an ancient alien robot haunted house. And now I'm starting my PhD in literature, and I'm interested in space noir. So basically Blade Runner and like what's happening in space outside in worlds like that, and anything with monstrous protagonists. As far as aliens go, I've been obsessed with aliens my whole life. The first time I remember feeling like an encounter with aliens happened when I was 12. And so I have sleep paralysis and waking dreams and lucid dreams, but I was pretty sure I wasn't asleep yet. And I was just lying in my bed and things were pretty normal. And then all of a sudden I was seized and like paralyzed and had these visions of pink glowing worm-like entities that kind of looked like they were made of cotton candy, but it was shifting and shimmering. And there was this sound that was like a sickly sweet, really high-pitched string harmony. And what made me believe it is like they weren't saying anything to me. There was just this sound, and it was a really unnatural, like highly modulated sound. And it's something that's nothing like any dream or hallucination or anything I'd ever had. This was before I'd ever done any illegal drugs, which I will neither confirm nor deny. I've done since. So ever since then, I've just been speculating and studying and really trying to find them anywhere I can. I've seen a number of UFOs and strange lights over places, as you do. I had one where I thought I'd finally seen like a craft for real during the day, and it was this weird bulbous brown thing that was just hovering over nothing outside Boulder, Colorado, where I was getting my master's. And then I walked closer to it, and it was just a balloon, which, sure. But another thing that makes me believe, especially when I lived in Colorado for 4 years, there are... nice doggy. There are so many government and para-government and private research organizations scattered over the mountains that have no public base, that have no signs or anything outlining what they do. And when you look them up online, all you get is a little bit of jargon or gibberish. So even if they're not studying aliens, it's unclear what they're studying. And whatever these weird, just in Boulder, there are at least 10 of these shell corporations and research centers. So it's just strange that there are never papers coming out of these huge research complexes that have been around for decades.
And Colorado's kind of known as a hotspot.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
For UFOs.
Yeah. Definitely. There's all the DIA stuff, which, that there's all kinds of underground labs and bunkers under the airport, which sounds silly, but then when you go to the airport, real estate anywhere near Denver, Colorado is so hot right now because everyone wants to move there. But the airport has 10 miles of nothing space on every side of it that's owned by the airport and is part of the airport, and there's just nothing there. And you could say maybe they're waiting to expand the airport, but they haven't expanded the airport. They haven't even started, and they've never really said they want to. So it's just, I've never been to another place that owns so much empty land when they could sell that land and make a killing and just build a few condos on it.
Maybe we should pause for a second.
Yeah.
Alphonse,
go out? Or?
What the hell are you barking at, bro? He means hold on.
Okay. Hey, welcome back, or I guess we're still going. So one other point that our generous government agent in attendance suggests I make is a really weird thing about being a science fiction writer in academia is there's pretty much no critical writing on science fiction literature. There's a fair amount about movies. They're starting to do a good job about comics. But as far as like actual novels and short stories go, before 2010, there were 2 books written about sci-fi. One is Kingsley Amis's New Maps of Hell. So Kingsley Amis was a fairly famous British poet who just got into sci-fi because he thought the covers were cool, and then thought there was some untapped meaning. And he's kind of the guy behind science fiction as theology and all of the strains of thought. So like Jack Kirby wouldn't have come up with New Gods if he hadn't read this guy's book, and so on. And then the other is the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction by John Clute, which is sort of much like it sounds like, but then a lot of it delves into criticism. So it's interesting that we're all talking about aliens as a psychological phenomenon, or if they're out there or not, but there's really little formal critical analysis of what any of this might mean, or how we can understand or not. So like, for example, SETI is looking for signals from extraterrestrial life, and we all want to believe in contact, right? Suddenly, the obvious signal will be there, and it'll be a eureka moment, and then Jodie Foster will see her dad again at the end, and hooray. But like, we get so much junk noise that are mixes of signals from decaying stars and supernovas and pulsars and fast radio bursts. And if you take this broadcast we're making right now and just take like a few seconds and then mix it with a bunch of effluvient from random stars, it's not going to look or sound like an intelligent signal. It's just going to be junk. So it's like we could easily be getting stuff all the time, and we have way too much faith in our ability to discern. So fast radio bursts are another phenomenon that are happening constantly. We have no good explanations. There might be special kinds of supernovas.
Right.
A lot of people say they can't be aliens because they're too powerful, but that's like question begging that we assume the aliens don't have that much power. Or also with, we all probably remember Oumuamua, that weird cigar-shaped asteroid from outside the solar system. And as we were looking at that, like,
talked about that.
Most scientists were like, maybe it's a fragment of an exploded comet. Some others, who obviously want to believe, were like, oh, it could be a fragment of a spacecraft. It could be an actual spacecraft built into part of the comet. Or this one guy at Harvard, who I hope still has his job, was like, nah, it's a solar sail that got accelerated by a giant laser from space. And the problem is, we only took measurements of this thing for about 8 minutes when it was like between the orbits of Jupiter and Neptune.
Yeah.
And then it was gone. And from 8 minutes of measurements from really, really far away, there's no way to discern a chunk of an exploded comet, a solar sail, or a spacecraft. They all just look like shiny metal things with weird trajectories. And then also, even now in science fiction movies, whenever you see a spacecraft now, they're built out of asteroids. Because it's just like, well, there's this big rock here, why not just hollow out a little portion of it and stick a rocket on the back, instead of constructing this vast, beautiful 2001: A Space Odyssey Star Wars thing up in space. So probably, like, aliens had that idea too. So, like, I just think we forget how, like, terrible we are at measuring stuff that's that far away. So, like, it could just be, like, the answer to, like, the Fermi paradox, where is everybody, is, like, you have really bad hearing, I think.
It's academic. I wouldn't say it's necessarily academic, but there's a book you might want to check out. It's called H.P. Lovecraft and the Cult of the Alien Gods.
Ooh,
so kind of the assertion that the author is making is that really we didn't have this idea of alien life until like the early pulp comics from writers like Lovecraft and these pulp dime store novels and things like that. That was kind of the beginning of science fiction, and once we started having those, then we began to have more UFO encounters. So it's from a skeptic's perspective, but it's still rather interesting.
It's interesting. I know we have a lot of aliens in slightly different words, like Giordano Bruno is famous for talking about other, like, infinite worlds, infinite lives. Like, there's celestial beings and ancient Greek myth. But, so it's also like, maybe we've just been seeing it, and it wasn't until the pulps came around that we got the language to make sense of it.
Well, that's kind of my feeling personally about it, but I know a lot of more
even that
skeptical.
language could still be wrong, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Like,
I
yeah,
think
how
like
do you describe anything that's outside of your worldview? It's kind of, it becomes a myth, a folklore, urban legend.
I think that's what Jacques Vallée gets into a lot. He talks a lot about a lot of these old mythology and stories of little gremlins or goblins or whatever, and how they are very similar to modern UFO stories, just kind of the language is a little different.
Right, yeah. And, you know, it's sort of like any experience that's outside of your worldview. How do you begin to describe that to someone else? If something seems unnatural to you, how do you use the language that you have to communicate these ideas from a very personal experience or something? Some UFO encounters, you have multiple people encountering this, but they oftentimes have very differing stories, like the one we had touched previously, where the woman thought that it was the second coming of Jesus.
Yeah.
She told her kid, "Oh, it's okay, you know, the angels are coming for us," or whatever, you know, things like that. So.
And even back in the 1800s, where they had a big UFO flap, they described them as big airships, big zeppelins, basically.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing they could relate it to.
Uh-huh.
Unless that was all a hoax, which is a possibility too, because there was a lot of yellow journalism at the time, but that's a whole other episode.
There was quite a bit of yellow journalism. Still.
Yeah.
Still is.
Yeah, sure.
I think we'll go ahead and conclude here for today.
Since you're a writer, do you have any books that people...
Sure. So my first novel that I'm going to get published very soon is called Shiny House. And like I said, it's a sci-fi horror comedy with space pirates, all jokes and one-upsmanship. But they're at the end of their rope, and they try to rob Shiny House, which is this vast, planet-sized, ancient alien space station that's sort of known for being the only place left in the universe that humans still can't understand. And there are some aliens out there, but we're technologically superior to all of them, except for whoever built this place. So they start investigating and get sucked deeper and deeper, and gets very haunted housey, and then there is a giant fight scene at the end.
And what's your full name?
Oh yeah, and I am Samuel Joseph Chirtel. So look for that one coming out soon. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on. This was really fun.
No problem.
And thank you for listening.